I'll just talk for about 10 minutes because you'll get bored of listening to me otherwise. I've done some notes. This is not a presentation. This is not a, me stand up and talk. This is just basically the notes are more or less to allow me to follow my own logic thoughts as we go through the presentation. And so I'll just go through what I've got to say, and then it's over to you to see what you think of it, really. First thing about the economy is that people get into detail straight away on actually specific policies that need to be done. Overall, when you're talking to members of the public, to MPs actually, and to ministers, there are always some fundamentals which have to be addressed. And the three fundamentals are to controlling the economy. There's inflation, there's employment, and there's deficit management. Inflation is an official target set. It's managed by the Bank of England, an independent Bank of England. Since Gordon Brown and Tony Blair made it independent, is almost their first act. And that determines as well the interest rate policy, because the interest rate policy determines the inflation rate effectively. Employment, there's no official target set, and essentially that's let to ride where it will ride. But the big one that has been possibly the downfall in the last two elections is deficit management. And with the question, the accusation always levered of how did we manage to let the deficit get so high, and how we can control it, and can we be trusted again to bring that deficit under control. And time again, that's in every poll, that seems to be the Achilles heel of Labour Party policy of can you be trusted with the deficit and can you manage it. So I'll talk a bit about deficit management. Over the last 7 years, there's effectively been one tool and one tool only, which has been, first of all, George Osborne's and now Philip Hammond's austerity. I think most people agree that that's been a pretty complete failure in a sense. The deficit is still absolutely massive. We've suffered cut after cut after cut, and eventually Osborne's targets were abandoned just a couple of weeks ago by Philip Hammond in the autumn statement. So I think we're probably not at the back of austerity, but we're certainly at that point where austerity targets will be slackened. If we want to look at how we actually address deficit management, fundamentally there are two ways to do it. You either cut spending or you increase the tax take. And it's a sum of money, and we either cut the amount we spend or we increase the amount we raise, and they are essentially those. So reducing the deficit, cutting spending, I'm not personally sure that more cuts are actually feasible. I mean, you shouldn't be against good housekeeping. Every now and again, a review of how the government spends its money to make sure that money is spent in the most effective and efficient way is a sensible thing to do. But the cuts that we've seen over the past go far beyond that, and I'm personally not sure that many more cuts are actually feasible, and I'm not sure that people in this room would want to propose them anyway. If you want to raise more in tax, again, there are two ways to do this. You can either raise tax on the existing tax base, but that's difficult. If you raise taxes, anybody put interest rate, if you put sort of income tax rates up, people do tend to object, so it's unpopular. The other way that was done over many years was just stealth taxes. People just increased taxes without other people hoping to realise. Well, people have got wise to that now, and so stealth taxes nearly always get found out very quickly, and sort of so they don't wash anymore. And the other thing is to tax the wealthy or corporates. And whatever you do, the reality is that wealthy and corporates are just extremely good at avoiding it. They employ lots of people and pay them lots of money just to avoid it. So pinning your hopes on that is something we should certainly be trying to do, without a doubt, but actually saying this is going to cure our problems may not be the way forward. So the second way is to increase the size of the tax base. Let's grow the cake, and we can actually take a bigger income using the same tax rates we use now by having a bigger cake. So raise the size of the tax base. It's a very simple equation. The size of the economy is actually a product of the number of people in work times by productivity. It's the number of people actually doing stuff multiplied by the value of what they produce. And that's it is really. So looking at those two factors, raising employment, we're actually doing quite well on some measures of actually raising employment. Employment figures came out Yesterday, there are now over 31,161,000 people in work, though there are serious doubts about the quality of a lot of that work. A lot of it is zero-hours contracts, low-quality work, enormous rise in self-employment over the last 5 years. Self-employment of the 31 million employed, self-employed now make up 4.7 million of them. And there's serious issues about whether those people have been forced into self-employment and when they don't really want to, about the income that they're earning in self-employment. Something like 30% of people who are in self-employment also claim state benefits. So it sort of kind of raises issues about the extent to which they really, you know, in work poverty for the self-employed. Raising productivity, we're actually doing extremely poorly on this. The productivity measures in the UK have just flatlined for the last 8 years. Hammond raised it in the autumn statement. He's setting up a UK Productivity Council, which is to be chaired by Sir Charlie Mayfield, who's Chief Executive John Lewis. And it's really about how we increase. And his statement was, in the autumn statement, that it takes a German worker to produce in 4 days what a UK worker produces in 5. Now, the impression that always leaves that sort of kind of when you've got a German guy there and a UK guy there, at the end of the day, he'll have a pile which has got 5 in it and this could be a pile of 4 in it. And that's actually the wrong end to look at it, because it's not about physical outputs, the number of whatever they are, it's about the value. What the Germans are extremely good at is actually making high quality goods and services which they charge more money for. They're making BMWs and Mercedes, which flog at £40,000 a time. We're making Vauxhall Vectras, which sell at £25,000 a time. So it's not about the physical output, it's about the value of that physical output. And the value of that physical output is about the quality of it. And so that leads on to the conclusion that a lot of people have reached, that the only way we're going to raise productivity is if we have an actual active industrial policy which will enable us both to produce more, but to produce more of high value. We've got generic proposals, although from the government they're extremely modest. There's things like investment in infrastructure, rails, railway, internet and so on skills. There's some of the skills issues and proposals are, we'll wait to see what they look like. There's the apprenticeship levy, and there's the expansion of apprenticeships. And then there's a big thing about access to finance with the creation of an investment bank, which will allow small and medium-sized firms to get access to finance to allow them to expand. All good ideas, very similar to what John McDonnell's proposing as well, only our proposals are much more ambitious and sort of kind of much bigger on scale than anything you'd have seen in the autumn statement. What we're lacking, and almost completely lacking, is specific sector strategies to identify and target individual bits of the economy and say, these are the bits where we can help companies get better. And when I say get better, what I mean is that we need more high quality companies which produce high quality goods and services which command a higher value in the market. So we need more Rolls Royces, less of the backstreet sort of kind of engine manufacturers. We need more John Lewis's, we need less of the Aldi. And we need more of those companies to sell them overseas. Because that's the way we actually can drive productivity up. It's not about getting people to knock out 10 of these rather than 8 last week. It's about, if they knock out whatever they knock out, getting a high price for them in the market. So for me, I would say we have to make sure we sound on fundamentals, that we have policies in place which will show that we're on top of inflation, that employment we will be also on top of in terms of looking at the quality of the employment that's being created. But more importantly, because this is the weak spot, is that we have policies in place to show that we're going to manage the deficit down, because people don't trust you if you don't show you're going to manage the deficit down. And we have to demonstrate we have active policies to do that, which essentially means growing the tax base by increasing productivity, which means that investment in infrastructure is vital and needs to be more ambitious than we've got plans for now, certainly more ambitious than Hammond's got, and possibly more ambitious than John McDonnell's got. but we also need to develop an active industrial policy which shows people how we're going to grow those bits of the economy, which essentially we're going to pay our way and allow us to grow the tax base and reduce the deficit down. That's it.